This video takes you through the AR.Drone Flight Android app. It will show you how to configure and use the app, including the new Platinum features with a V2 drone, and shows you how to use the enhanced features of the V2, including USB recording, and also how to set up profiles and manage profiles. The app is available both on the Android Google Play Store and Amazon Marketplace. I'll now launch the app for the first time. This shows the connecting to the drone. I've already set it up to connect to the Wi-Fi. And that's the initial connection to a V2 drone. I'll now just verify that's a V2 drone. You see the on-screen joysticks moving. And if I try and take off, you get a message saying that this is a V2 drone and you can't fly without donating. Amazon App Store won't have this issue, but for the Play Store, then you need to go to Platinum Features. And if you've already donated, then you don't need to do that. And this is a reinstall, then you need to go through the same steps. This just shows you what happens if you connect to the internet. You don't connect to the internet when you actually need to on the Platinum menu. So I'll now go through again doing the same thing, but clicking on the Platinum menu. It tells you to connect to the internet. Now I'll connect to the actual Wi-Fi of my internet location. And it's connecting to the Wi-Fi. If I then connect, then what should happen here is if you've already donated or bought a Platinum feature, then these will be greyed out, which is what the case here. So you can see there's the donate menu item and it's greyed out. Then you've got an autonomous flight, which is another Platinum feature, which will be described later on, where you can download maps from MapsForge. Again, this has to be done when you're connected to the internet. They're quite large files, so you need to make sure that you're doing it on a Wi-Fi connection, not on a 3G tethering. And finally, then there's the flight animations, including V2 flips and LED animations. Once you're finished with this Platinum features, getting new features, then you can connect back to the drone. Wait for it to connect. Back to the drone. Okay, so that was the Platinum features. And if I now just check that I can connect, take off, there you go. Actually, it takes off. So that verified that the Platinum feature was correct for allowing you to take off. And I'll take you through checking the firmware versions on the drone. There's various options. Either you can download from Parrot. Currently Parrot only have the V1 firmware and it's a bit out of date, or you can use the connect to my website and download from my website. So this is what I'll do here. So I'll connect to the Wi-Fi again because the firmware download is quite large, and then I'll download. I haven't actually connected properly. That's what you've got to do, make sure that you actually are properly connected. Connected. Yeah, now it's downloading. Right, firmware downloaded. And connect back to the drone. Okay, now you're back to the drone. You can verify the firmware is the correct version, and if it's not, then you can update the drone from this version, from this menu. Okay, so that was the drone firmware. Okay, so this is general UI settings, and you can see the cyclic mode and also dead zone and sensitivity for both cyclic and collectives. So the cyclic mode defaults to the button press, but there are various other modes, including touching anywhere on the screen, toggle tilt, where you basically press once and then it will use the gyro and then press again to not, or you can use on-screen joysticks, and I'll just select on-screen joystick for cycling here. And you can also use larger joysticks. And touch centering basically means if you touch anywhere on the joystick, on-screen joystick, then that's the starting point center of the joystick. It does mean to say you can run out of travel, so if you don't like that, you can turn off touch centering. Okay, so that was joystick settings. Now I'll go to flight settings. You've got the limiting of altitude. V1 drones, you shouldn't try going above 10 meters. V2 can go as high as you like, but that depends on your Wi-Fi range. So here what I've done is I said over 30 meters, then you're risking going out of Wi-Fi range. So that's why you get the on-screen warning when you're trying to go above 30 meters. Some people have got range extenders, and then they can then obviously use as much range as they need. And they can choose outdoor hull and outdoor mode. Auto land is an option is an experimental option, which basically if you're under 15 centimeters land, but some of the drone firmware have currently got some issues with that, so I wouldn't use that option unless you really want to play with it. Combined yaw is basically when you want to fly more like a car. Basically, when you turn left, it will tilt and yaw at the same time. So basically, and you can choose whether you want the yaw control to be active at the same time or not. So normal yaw is like full radio control flying of a helicopter. Combined yaw makes it easier. It's more like flying a plane. Forward flight mode is equivalent to the absolute flight mode on the V2 drones, but this works with both. Normal camera forward mode is basically what it starts off in, which basically means when you tilt forward, it will fly in the direction the camera is facing, the front camera is facing. Then you've got two other modes. There's the basically takeoff direction set. So what that means is when you take off, it sets the direction that you're facing at takeoff. The camera is facing at takeoff, as that's the front of the drone. So then if you rotate, it doesn't matter, then tilting forward will still go in the direction where the drone was facing at takeoff. So assuming you don't turn, that's the way it will be. You're basically facing that direction. If you do turn, then you might want to use the compass corrected one, which basically means it's then corrected to be where you're facing. And you've also got yaw rate and climb rate and maximum tilt angles, which are basically drone settings, so you can make the drone go up and down faster or yaw faster. Okay, so the next setting is the user interface section. So here we've got on-screen controls and settings for that. So we've got the transparency rating, so basically that you can make the on-screen controls more or less transparent so you can see through them or not. Then we've got a UI scale option. Basically anything on 100% means no scaling. You can scale controls down smaller if you've got a smaller screen, below 100%, or up to a maximum of 200%. So you can basically make the scale the UI controls as much as you like. You've also got ability to change the on-screen joystick color, various video bitrate settings, the record bitrate. What I'll do is show you the sort of quick menu option to do the device performance setting, and that will adjust the record rate at the same time as the frames per second. More for V2 drones, but the record rate is still relevant for a slower thing. And then low device, then you only record locally at 500, and otherwise it goes up to 4 megabits a second, and the middle is 1500, 1.5 megabits a second. Okay, then we've got various other options to do with text to speech, whether you're going to show the total flying time. Basically will append, if you've got here we can see the different altitude modes. If you want to show the altitude in meters or imperial and heading and frame per second, if you've got the total flight time checked as well, then it will be appended on the end of this. But when it's off, you won't see the total flight time. Total flight time resets when you quit the app, assuming that you're going to have the thing. I'll just check that the profile settings, so you want to switch between the user profiles. I'll show you user profiles later on in the video. And we'll also say overlay drone flight information, which basically, when you're doing local video recordings, it will overlay information on from the drone for heading and other things. And navigator tracing is really something you don't want to use. You don't want to have navigator tracing on. You just basically want to run it off most of the time, only for debugging. And finally, on this section, got enemy detection. That's basically if you own AR.Drone combat as well, then you want to set the enemy detection modes. And you can say normal flight, which basically no detection on. And then you've got two other modes, indoor or outdoor enemies, depending on what the shell that you're using on your drone is. And you can also set the color of the drone and also alternate frequency. If you've got two drones flying in the same enclosed space, you don't want them on the same ultrasonic frequency, otherwise they interfere with each other. And you've also got difficulty settings, so you can configure how easy combat is. And the final section on the screen is about gamepad mapping. This again is only if you've got ice cream sandwich or newer and your device manufacturer has to support USB gamepads. But basically this allows you to map all the keys and joysticks appropriately. And I've actually got a PS3 controller plugged in, so I'll just go through. So you basically touch a section and then press the relevant control on your joystick, your gamepad, and that's easy. For the buttons, are just obvious. Some buttons map to the OS, so you've got to be careful about those. So that's just setting all the buttons. See, and the joysticks. We've basically got something different, but you've got to basically move the joystick you want, the axis of the joystick you want, fully extend, so you can see what the full range of. You can choose which joystick axis map to which control you want, either cyclic or yaw and climb. Okay, so that was joystick mapping. Just a quick show of the video. There you can see the on-screen display has now showing the altitude, and now it's doing USB recording. You can see the USB time ticking down as the USB recording on a V2 drone only, of course this is. And you can toggle the camera between vertical and front facing. You've got the profile switch button. Also got the camera button, so we take stills. Press that and it will take a still. I'll show you where the folders for the stills and videos are later on in the video. And I think that's, yeah, basically just showing you, basically those are the controls for flight animations. Obviously I'll show you how to set up flight animations later in the video. Basically left is to play the animation, right at the arrow is to move to the next flight animations. Okay, now I'll take you through profile settings. Profiles are used to switch between different common sets of settings. So in case we haven't got any profile set up, so I'll create a new profile. I'll call it indoor. And another new profile, and I'll make that outdoor. Okay. Right, now you can switch between them with the profile button. Seems I'm switching the profile around and you get an on-screen toast when you switch to a different profile. And back to the indoor profile again. and I'll go into the settings. Basically you switch whichever profile you want, then you go to the change settings and it will give you an on-screen toast. Yeah, you can see which profile that you're editing. And so I'll now go into change the flight settings for that one. Sure that it was indoor, so it was okay. Now I'll switch to the outdoor profile. And I'll go back into change settings and I'll switch over some control settings to make it an outdoor mode. So back into the flight settings, outdoor hull, outdoor mode. You can also do tilt angles and other things like that, maybe make it more sensitive. Change the altitude limit if you wanted. Okay. Just make some other adjustments to the indoor profile to show that now in the flight settings, the CU got different flight settings. It hasn't got the outdoor mode ticked and it hasn't got the altitude checked. I'll switch back to the other profile. So you can see again when I go to flight settings. Oh, hang on a minute, I'll just turn off the joystick. So I'll make it more obvious when I'm switching on screen. Okay, flight settings. There you can see it's in outdoor mode still with the height. Okay, back. Now I'll switch between indoor and outdoor, and you should see the basically as I switch between them, you can see the joystick appearing on screen. And there it's disappearing when I switch back to the outdoor profile, which didn't have the on-screen. So you can do that sort of thing as well. And obviously altitude and that sort of thing. And there's the right, I'll turn off USB recording. So basically as I turn off USB, you see now it's not recorded, it's recording locally, but this will be saved locally on the drone. And now you don't get the USB tick down timer for showing the USB capacity on the V2 drone. You can see it's more impacting the frame rate as well. In this case though, you can use the recording, the overlay information, which will overlay, I'll show that a bit later on, which will overlay the drone height, speed and heading information onto the video. Obviously this has to be done at real-time recording, and you can't do that for USB recording. Okay, now I'll show you the flight folders, and then SD card, AR.Drone flight, where is all the settings and all the folder information for. You need to make sure that you prune out things as well. So SD card, and I go into AR.Drone flight, and that's the folder. So you've got firmware, you've got flights that you've done, logs, the map for autonomous mapping. Then you've got media folders. This is one that I took earlier when you saw me press the camera button. So if I just go in there, and there's a still capture. It's higher resolution than the normal video, so you should have a better stills. Okay, and I'll show you the video folders. There's lots of videos that I've done. And I'll check on the most recent one and show it playing. And there you can see it's got the heading, altitude, speed information that would have been recorded when you take off. Obviously I'm moving it manually, so but there you can get some idea of what the information you can do with recording overlay. Okay, so that's really the folder structure. As I said, you've got to, those are the firmware updates downloaded, one for V1 and V2 drones. You also need to prune out the flight folders and make sure that you haven't got nav data tracing on. There's the autonomous map, single map, always called ARDrone.map. I'll now go through the platinum feature. The first one's flight animations. Now, flight animations are a V1 and V2, so you can animate flight moves, also animate the LEDs. And for V2 drones, this is how you actually do flips as well. Flips obviously require a lot more space, so you need to make sure your drone is high up and away from any buildings or other obstructions. So you can create a new flight animation here. You can also repeat it if you want to. If you check the repeat box, I'll call it V2 flips. And then I'll add an animation. Here basically you've got all the different settings, animations and LED animations. So you can just choose the ones you want. And you can see quite an extensive list. So I'll just try a V2 flip, and then you want to say how much delay do you want to make after you've done the flip. So obviously you've got a sequence of moves, you need the drone to stabilize after each move. So you take the time, and then I'll choose here, I'll just do an LED animation. So I'll go down to the LED animations and choose one of the LED animations. And LED animations require a time, so you've got a non-zero time. Okay, so that's the idea. Basically you can build up sequences of animations. You can have multiple sequences and then just switch between them with the on-screen controls and play back or stop if it's repeating. And that's just editing it if I want to edit it. Okay, now I'll show you autonomous mode. Autonomous mode is a sort of experimental mode using the drone inertial navigation system, and it's only approximate, so you have to use your device GPS and compass to set up the initial thing before you take off the drone, and you have to do it every flight because the autonomous mode drifts. But when you've done that, as long as you keep within range, it's obviously limited to your Wi-Fi range, then you can set up waypoints, you can see the drone in the map, and they've got various, so you basically hold your device over the drone facing the right way with your compass, and so that will calibrate the drone. But then you've also got some options like come here, face me, or use waypoints. First one to check that you've got everything calibrated right is face me, and then walk around and make sure the drone is following your GPS location. Then you can try come here, and if that's successful, then you can try the following a route.